Hello and welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show. My name is Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for companies and I also teach at Podcast Engineering School. Every week on this show, we bring you podcast production techniques on a silver platter. We alternate between interviews with podcast producers and engineers and daily goody episodes like this one, where I'm going to talk about around 9 or 10 of the daily goody blog posts that I write. I write them 3 times a week. And by the way, you can also sign up to receive them in your email. So if you want to sign up to receive the daily goodies, you can receive them either daily or as a weekly roundup. Go to the website, podcastengineeringschool.com. Hey, the next semester of PES starts on June 29th. And I want to give you guys a coupon code here. We're having a little special on a smaller course that I created. The course is called Getting New Clients at Higher Rates. So if you edit podcasts or produce podcasts and you want to, learn how to get new clients at higher rates, then my little smaller course is just the thing for you. And now I have a coupon to get $300 off that course. So $300 off with the coupon code May 2021. I will include all the details in the show notes. So check out the show notes for the link to the course and also the coupon code, all that. All right, well, now we're ready to get into these daily goody blog posts, and we're going to start with one it's from December 25th. So I'm slowly catching up on all my, daily goodies. This one is called Descript's new transcription glossary. So I don't know if you've heard of Descript. It's a really cool tool that you can use to edit your audio, transcribe your audio, and now, it's 5 months ago now that you can actually put into Descript proper nouns that you want Descript to be able to recognize. Like for audio, would be especially handy, like Neumann, Sennheiser. Like I'm sure regular transcription services have trouble with, certain proper nouns like that. But anyway, the cool thing about Descript is you can put in your own proper nouns and then it really helps with the transcription. I still have not used Descript, but a lot of people really like it. And a lot of podcast editors actually use it because it can automatically identify ums and ahs, and it can remove them automatically. So anyway, I thought that was pretty cool with Descript, with the glossary. You can use your own proper nouns. Because that's always the problem with transcription, is it's never as good as you want it to be. Let's put it that way. All right, next daily goody. The sound in the game Among Us. All right, so there's a game called Among Us, and I don't know, it was really popular at least 6 months ago, but now I don't know how popular it is. But anyway, it's a game called Among Us, and it's like a multiplayer game, so a lot of people can sort of get together and play together and all that. I've never played it, but the reason I'm bringing it up here is that I watched a couple popular streamers that I like. I watched them play the game Among Us, and what I noticed was the sound. So on the screen, there's all different players running around in different places, and I actually noticed that the sound followed the players. So if somebody ran off to the left of the screen, to the left side of the screen, you would hear their footsteps in the left side of the stereo spectrum. And then they would move to the right, and it would move to the right with them. And also, and there were other sort of background noises or noises from other players too. It's just, so it was really interesting to me how when they designed this video game, because that's really what it is, they made it so that it's not only stereo audio but spatially correct. And I'm wondering if it must be spatially correct for every single player. So it's like creating a custom audio mix for every single player where, depending on their point of view, it's moving sounds within the stereo spectrum from left to right. I thought that was cool. I don't know how to program video games. I would think that might be hard to do. I don't know. But the fact that they can do that is really cool, right? I don't know. I think it is. All right, next daily goody. Managing the expectations of your clients. All right, well, this actually goes for any clients in any business, but certainly with a podcast production business or a podcast editing business, when you get clients, you really have to manage the expectations of your clients. And it just helps to be really crystal clear on what is expected from each party. What am I going to do? What are you going to do? What's the flow of work? And, really you can get pretty specific on this stuff, and it's better if you do and put it in writing so that you and your client know what's expected of them and what they need to do. And so specific areas you might want to be clear in, among many others, are launch timing, right? The timing of the launch, and as a podcast producer, you need a bunch of assets in order to launch the podcast, and so that you're waiting on the client to give you those assets. And if they don't give them to you immediately, then the launch might be delayed, right? It could screw up a lot of timing around marketing and launch, whatever. The turnaround time for episodes, that's another one you should be clear on, the turnaround time. Also, the method and timing for requesting edits. Also, communications with guests. So there's a lot of areas you have to be clear with your clients on and then manage those expectations. All right, the next post on the site is actually not a daily goodie. It's a special episode from December 31st, 2020, and it's called Special, Your Blunt Pep Talk for 2021. All right, so this was me and Steve Stewart. We did a nice episode covering a bunch of different areas of life and sort of thinking into the future and visioning things and also setting goals and a bunch of cool stuff. I don't know. I actually really like doing that episode. I wonder if it was helpful to you, if you heard it. I wonder. I mean, I'm sure if you listen to it, there was a lot in there. There's a lot of information in there, but it wasn't all about podcast production, obviously. All right, the next daily goodie is the Zoom PodTrak P4. Yeah, the Zoom PodTrak P4. So this came out at the end, toward the end of 2020. It's like a little 4-track recorder that, it's a different form factor than, like, for instance, the Zoom H6 or the Zoom H4n. It's a different form factor, but essentially it's kind of the same. I mean, you're able to plug in a bunch of microphones and record, but I guess they really aimed the marketing at this one toward podcasters. I mean, they called it a PodTrak, and, it might sort of have a built-in mix minus. I really don't know. I haven't looked into it. I don't have one. I haven't used it. But I do remember when it came out, people were sort of gushing about it. But then come to think of it, when anything new is released, there's always a bunch of people gushing about it. So I don't know if you use a Zoom PodTrak P4 and you got it when it came out or something and you're still using it. Let me know what you think of it. Seems like a pretty cool, handy, portable. Of course, portable is the whole point of it, is so that you can go different places and record podcasts from different places, right? Just have a portable recorder, plug in a bunch of microphones, and then just talk and record a conversation. So pretty cool. All right, next daily goodie, Level Magic by Flux Jünger. So this is called Level Magic, and I didn't know anything about this, but I found it, about 5 months ago. And okay, so it's a standalone software, and I believe you can also use it as a plugin. I believe so. But anyway, this is software, or maybe it's only a plugin. All right, now I'm confused. Yeah, it's a real-time and offline loudness processor. So it's a loudness processor. It's similar to Auphonic. You know how a lot of podcasters use Auphonic to, you can use it's not level match. It's in Auphonic, there's a setting where you can sort of, it'll level out different guests who are speaking at different volumes. Anyway, this Level Magic by Flux Jünger, that's the main thing it does. And a lot of radio stations use this and internet broadcasters and a bunch of different use cases for this software, because it's kind of like being able to control the level, and there's a lot of different parameters. You got the leveler parameters with the loudness target and the maximum gain. And you have the transient processor. How should it handle transients? Then there's a limiter. And then there's an expert tab with, where you can adjust the recovery speed of this thing. So it's pretty cool. And apparently you can use it to adhere to the many loudness standards around the world because it has built-in sort of templates for different loudness standards. So, if your audio was going to be played on a radio station in Brazil, you could probably dial in that, setting or, with the loudness specifications, only. So anyway, Level Magic, I think it costs around $400. I bought it. I tried it a bunch of times and I loved it. But the way I normally produce podcast audio, I don't use levelers like that. But I wanted to get it for like live streaming and stuff. But I still didn't try it for that. But anyway, Level Magic by Flux Jünger. I thought it was pretty cool. And again, don't forget, all these daily goodies I'm talking about, I link to each one in the show notes. So check out the show notes or the description, and you can click to these different daily goodies. So if you want to learn more about the Level Magic, just go to the show notes, click the link. It'll bring you right to the blog post where you can read about what I wrote. And also it links to the actual thing, right? So, all right, next daily goodie. Be aware. Some earbuds feed back within themselves. Yeah, some earbuds feed back within themselves. I noticed this over years of recording remote sessions, right? Remote interview sessions. People, like some earbuds, I don't know what brand, or I haven't been able to research it, in that much depth, but some earbuds, as the person turns up the volume in their ears, it actually increases the feedback. So whatever's coming through their ears then comes through their microphone and back across the internet. It's really weird. And so normally what I do in these cases, if someone's, because it's not that they have speakers on in the room that's feeding back into their microphone, right? It's not that. They're using earbuds and they're not using any speakers. But yet when you're on the other side of the internet, you will hear your voice feeding back. And it's really weird. And it's not good because because the feedback will be recorded on their track as well. So it's not good. It's really not good. It's almost a deal breaker in terms of, having to like re-record the episode, right? If it's really that bad. So in my experience, there's really no way to fix it because it's a hardware issue with the earbuds they're using. So I guess you could, ask them if they have a different pair of earbuds or something, or headphones or a microphone or whatever. You could ask them if they have anything different that they could try. But if they don't, the only thing I know that helps is to have them turn down the volume in their earbuds as much as they can. So I'm talking about the playback volume, the volume that the guest hears in their ears. Turn down that volume, the playback volume, the monitor volume. Turn that down as much as you can. So in the guest's ears, they should be able to hear all the other participants, but they shouldn't be like loud and cranked up in his or her ears. So that's the only, and then when you do that, when the guest turns down their monitor volume, the feedback goes way lower and it almost becomes negligible. So that's a cool thing to remember. If you do ever have a guest who's using earbuds and you're hearing a feedback, ask them to turn down the volume in their ears and then test it again, listen again, and see if the feedback went way down. And if so, then that's the solution right there. All right, next daily goodie, 32-bit floating point explained. Yeah, because I found this really cool video from Alan at Sound Speeds, which I linked to in the daily goodie. And he explains 32-bit floating point really well. I saw this and I was like, yeah, that's just the way Alan explained it was really cool. I really appreciated it myself because I kind of knew what 32-bit floating point was, but I really didn't know the whole story. So it's amazing. So anyway, you can go to the daily goodie and read it, but basically 32-bit floating point is a resolution of recording where, you've heard of 16-bit and 24-bit, right? Well, then there's 32-bit, which was a higher resolution, but 32-bit standard is different than 32-bit floating point. And when you use 32-bit floating point, apparently because of the way it encodes the audio, there's almost no way to distort the audio, which is amazing, which means you could scream into your microphone as loud as you want and it's still not going to distort. That kind of thing, which makes it handy for a lot of live recording use cases for sure. Now for podcasting, 32-bit float it's a little overkill for sure. You could use it, no problem, but the recorded files are going to be huge. And like I said, it's really not necessary. I record everything in 24-bit, and to me, that's high resolution enough for me. So, but if you want to record in 32-bit floating point, go ahead. And by the way, the MixPre interfaces, the MixPre 2, the second gen of the MixPres, they have built-in 32-bit floating point recording, which is supposed to be really cool. I have a MixPre 6, the original, the first one, the first series. So I don't have that, but anyway, that's just an FYI. Let's go to the next daily goodie. Being close to the mic, but still not sounding close enough. So I got an interesting note from Gary. It's a listener of this show. Hey, Gary. He's the host of the Audio Tidbits podcast. So check out the Audio Tidbits podcast. Anyway, he commented on the sound of my voice in episode 208. And in episode 208, I demonstrated my voice on 2 different microphones that I normally don't use. And also, because I was demonstrating the sound of these 2 microphones, I did not do any post-production in terms of compression or limiting or EQ. So what happened is that the episode was published and Gary heard my voice and he recognized that it was different than normal. He's like, oh yeah. So this is what Gary said. This is a quote from him. Quote, "It didn't sound to me like you were too far away from the microphone, but I kept wanting you to pull your chair up a little closer. I guess the only words I have for it is a little thin. I kept wanting one of us to scoot a little closer. I had the same feeling both on my Bose computer speakers and on my iPhone. Thanks for your great podcast. I keep learning." End quote. And so what a great observation. It's like, yeah, I can hear your voice, but I'm wanting to hear you a little closer. I want you to pull your chair up. And you know what that means in terms of audio production? I want you to use more compression. That's literally what that translates to in terms of audio production. Because that's what compression does. It brings the voice closer. So my response to Gary was, quote, "Very good observations. I agree, those 2 microphones sound thin on my voice. Regarding sounding not as upfront as usual, this is because I didn't use any compression in post-production on my voice in that episode, because I wanted the sound of the microphones to come through unprocessed. In general, compression makes audio sound closer, more in your face, and more intelligible over background noise or music, etc. And it's invaluable when producing professional audio. Good ear, Gary." End quote. Yeah, so that's a perfect real-world example of why compression is absolutely necessary in professional audio production, period. So, and that's why it's a little weird when podcasters and, new people and people who don't know much about audio, they always say, "Oh, I like my voice to sound natural without compression." They're just not understanding how listeners are going to hear the audio, right? Because a listener is going to be listening in an environment that's not dead quiet. So, all right. Anyway, I think I've been on that rant before. Next daily goodie: low-mid fullness versus muddiness. Yeah, low-mid fullness versus muddiness. And of course, I'm referencing low mid frequencies, which are roughly between 200 hertz and 500 hertz, give or take, right? These are just general areas when we talk in this way. But the low mids are really important. In fact, I think I've said this before. I may not have. When I first when I first break out an EQ and I'm about to tweak up someone's voice with an EQ, or if I'm working on music or anything, any sound that I'm about to EQ, and I don't know why I do this, but for some reason, my first focus is on the low mids and the mid range, of course, but the low mids specifically. Meaning, does it sound muddy? Is there too much low mids, or does it sound really thin and wimpy, which means there's not enough low mids? And again, the low mids are roughly between 200 hertz and 500 hertz. And so that's a great area to mess with. If you just break out an EQ and maybe center it around, I don't know, 300 or 350 or 400, and do like a bell curve centered around 300 or 350, and then just remove a bunch of it and listen, and then add a bunch of it and listen, and you'll hear, it's amazing. It's just amazing. That area of the frequency spectrum is so important. And obviously the mid-range is as well. Mid-range, of course, being 1 kilohertz plus or minus. So yeah, the low mids can make you sound nice and full. If you have a good amount of low mids, you'll sound full and strong. But if you don't have enough, you'll sound wimpy. And if you have too much in the low mids, it'll sound muddy. It'll just sound like not clear enough, or something just muddy. So actually, I think that's it for the daily goodies. Yeah, because the next post on the website is my episode with Michael Garfield, which was episode 209. I don't know if you heard that one. That was an amazing episode. Well, I appreciate you for listening. And don't forget, PES starts on June 29th. And also, if you have questions, you can always contact me. Go to the website, podcastengineeringschool.com, and there's a contact page. You could send me a note and just say hi or send me a question. And also, a reminder, I don't know if you're a member yet. Probably not. I started a community on Locals. It's called the Podcast Production Community, and I'll link to it in the show notes. But it's free to join, and I'm posting there every day, and a lot of other people are supporters there. They're posting and commenting. It's a really, really awesome podcast production community, probably the highest, the most professional grade group that I've ever been a part of by far. So if you're into the real technical aspects and stuff, then definitely, join that group. It's free, podcastproduction.locals.com. And you can become a supporter there. And if you do become a supporter for $5 a month, you get to post and you get to comment on any of the posts as well. So it's awesome. It's really awesome. If you haven't joined there yet, consider it, because you might love it. So the URL is podcastproduction.locals.com. That's it for me. Be back in a week or two with a great interview. Another great episode. I don't know what I've been getting lucky over the past 3 months. Every single interview I do is top notch, like unbelievable. What do you guys think? Have I been doing good? Have the interviews been good, or they been okay? Or which one did you like the best? You can always comment on the post too on the website. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm going to say goodbye. All right, say goodbye, everybody. Bye.